Born in Cleveland, raised a hillbilly. What's your story? Welcome to the Hillbilly Justice on the School Bus podcast. Here's your host, Sarah Blossom Ware.
Welcome to the 5th episode of the Hillbilly Justice on the School Bus podcast. I'm Sarah Blossom Ware. I'm a professor at College of DuPage, and I also teach at Benedictine University. The purpose of the podcast is to spark discussions in the student body and the general public regarding diversity and acceptance, and also to break stereotypes. In each podcast, I'll read a chapter from my book and then host a more general discussion on topics loosely related to the chapter. Discussion panel members are made up of college students and other colorful, upstanding members of the community. The chapter I will now read is called The Wishing Well. We had a well and a pond on our property. The well was about 40 yards from the cabin, and the pond was also about 40 yards away, but in the opposite direction. The well water was for drinking and cooking, and the pond water was for bathing and general cleaning. A lot of time and physical labor went into preparation for a bath. My mother would haul 5-gallon buckets of water up from the pond. She would pour some of the water directly into the bathtub, which was a hard plastic kiddie pool, and she would heat some of the water in a large pot on the propane stove. She would pour the hot water into the bathtub so that it wasn't too cold when we got in to bathe. The bath water was brownish green. Brown from disturbing the water when scooping it into the bucket, and green from algae and frog eggs. I guess we were cleaner when we came out than when we went in. Or maybe my mom was just carrying out the motions because mothers were supposed to bathe their children. I remember that my mom was always hauling water. If it wasn't from the pond, it was from the well. Our well looked just like the stereotypical wishing well from fairy tales. There was a circular wall of rocks built up around it so you couldn't accidentally fall in, and it had the bucket attached to the rope and the hand crank. Mom used to pour water from the bucket into empty milk jugs and carry those to the house. All of this physical labor was hard on my mother, and it was hard on her wedding ring. One day the setting on her ring became loose, and her half-carat diamond fell into the well while she was fetching water. A search and recovery team was formed with some of the neighbors. Dad was hoisted into the well with the rope. He made it to the bottom of the well and shone his flashlight around trying to locate the diamond. After a few minutes of searching, Dad began to feel dizzy and he had to be hoisted back out due to bad air in the well. I sometimes wonder if Mom didn't sacrifice her diamond in an act of desperation. I wish I could go to the ball, chunk. Sorry, Mom, your wish didn't come true. Okay, so let's introduce the panel members that will be with us for the next 4 podcasts. Before we do that, I would really like to again thank the 4 panel members that we had last time. They were really the guinea pigs, and then we have some new guinea pigs this time, I guess, let's say. But I'll just have everyone go ahead and introduce your name and a 6-word summary, and then an expanded introduction for this podcast. Len?
Hi, my name is Len Kruse, and my 6 words are family, Jesus, marriage, kids, music, and barn. Lane gave me a much cuter version that actually had a nice ring to it, but I decided to stick with this because it's hard to define yourself in 6 words. But my family is extremely important. I think it is to all of us, but I just highly identify with my dad's family. There were 13 of them. They used to meet every 3 or 4 years when my aunt from Ecuador was in the States, and that was such a huge part of our growing up, going out to South Dakota every summer, actually, usually. I became born again after my stint in the Navy, and subsequently married my lovely bride, Claudia, and that was a huge change in life. You're worrying about 2 instead of 1, and life is never the same. And then after that, we started having kids. We had 5 of them, and music has always been important to me. Not that I'm any good at it, but I really love it, and I kind of hack at the guitar and keyboard and bass and so on, but play in church and just at home and wherever. And we 20 years ago moved into a what used to be a big old dairy barn, and it's our house, and we've done a lot of work on it and made it fairly habitable, sort of. And that has been the center of a lot of activities, including our church picnics up until a couple of years ago. We've had the church picnics there for over 20 years, even before we bought the place. So
Yeah,
that's it.
Thank you. You, Lane?
Hi, my name's Lane Severson. My 6-word summary is oldest of 7, father of 5, and family is a big part of my life. I've been the oldest of a large family. I have 2 sisters and 4 brothers, and we all live close to one another. We get together regularly, a lot of impromptu gatherings of them calling up late on a Saturday night and coming over and let's watch The Godfather and play games. And so I really enjoy hanging out with my siblings a lot. I also have a growing brood of my own, hopefully done growing now, but we have 5, and just like Leonard, and we got them done quickly. So my oldest is 8 years old, and then we have twin 3-year-olds, so everyone is within 5 years old, 5 years of each other. And so that's also a blast. We do a lot of family activities, bike riding, going to forest preserves, hanging out at the zoo. All of those types of things are really integral part of what we're doing right now.
Thanks.
Okay, my name is Benedict Wiesner. If I had to summarize myself in 6 words, it would be I'm part of a huge family, and I'm, I guess, really playing off this big family theme. I'm not totally used to everyone else also being from a huge family. I'm the oldest of 9, and the reason I would pick that as my 6 words to summarize myself is because when I was thinking about the stuff we're going to be talking about today and the little stories I have to tell or things I have to say, most of them have something to do with the fact that there are a lot of siblings around me all the time, and most of the memorable or notable things in my life are having to do with all these family members I have, all these kids that are running around, stuff like that. So I think being part of a big family has probably been more of a defining attribute to my life and what I'm like than anything else.
Thank you. Crystal?
Okay, my name is Crystal Nordan, and my 6-word summary would be my life, a never-ending roller coaster. And I think I'm kind of the opposite of you guys because I don't have a big family. And I'd say that's my 6-word story because I've had, in my 21 years of existence, I've had many ups and downs. And I kind of never really know where I'm going to end up next. And I don't have a big family. I live with my stepmother, who's amazing, and my father. I have a 10-year-old brother who has orange hair, and it's really and funny teeth, and he's just so funny. And on my biological mother's side, I don't speak to her or any of that family anymore. She didn't really know much about her parents, and my biological father was adopted under closed adoption. So, and all that extended family he has no idea about. So I'm in a family where my father, the only blood-related people he knows would be me and my brother, which is kind of nice and special in a way. And as a kid, I lived in many states, a lot in the South. I went to a lot of schools. For instance, in 5th grade, I went to 6 elementary schools, 3 different states. So I was constantly all over the place. And now I'm happy to be at Benedictine University. A year ago, I was in Arizona. The year before that, I was at Joliet Junior College. So I never really know where I'm going to end up next. So.
Thank you. So here's our panel. So I'm excited. I'd like to thank the panel. I'll thank all of you so much for being here once again. Now it's time, before we get into the discussion questions, it's time for a segment that I call, So What Have You Been Busy With Lately? Len, what have you been busy with lately?
Well, interesting you would say that because I'm kind of an old geezer among you folks. I'm past retirement age, believe it or not, and I just decided I need to start slowing down. So I talked to my boss this past fall and said, I want to go half-time. Can we work something out? And he was delighted because our company is in need of, cutting expenses, and that'll make a nice little chunk out of their budget, and it will give me time to work on some stuff that I want to do. And so this past week was my first week off under the new scheme. And the way that it works is we're at work, we're very heavily front-loaded. A lot of hours the first week or two of the month, and then the last week of the month, 2 weeks of the month rather, are less pressure. And so this past week I am helping my daughter and her husband get their new house ready. We did some painting and tiling and whatnot. I'm helping my son up in Wisconsin finish this bathroom project he's doing in the basement. I did some projects around my own house. I fixed my wife's car so that she could take it on a trip to Duluth with the ladies from our church. And there's other stuff, but that's enough for now.
And you're doing this.
And now I'm doing this. Yeah, that's right.
You just lifted more than I did all of last year.
Yes, exactly. I think Claudia's happy.
Yeah, I am too. It's really nice to have this extra time.
Yeah,
It's just awesome.
Thank you. All right, so let's get into our discussion questions. So this, we would like it to be very interactive. And also, if you're listening in to the podcast, please put your 6-word summary in the comment section, or let us know what you think of some of these questions. What are some of your stories? Because everybody has a story to tell for sure. So we want to hear some of them right now. So the first question that I would like to throw out there is, how did your parents handle stress when you were younger? Or at least, how did you perceive that your parents handled stress? Because in this chapter, The Wishing Well, my mother was very stressed a lot of times, but she, so how did you perceive your parents handling stress, and then how has this affected the way that you deal with it in your life now?
So I had a story that came to mind as soon as you had asked that question. When we were young, there were, again, a lot of us in the family, and so getting to any sort of activity was a huge undertaking.
I can relate.
Yeah. And so, my mom would be trying to get us to say swimming lessons on Wednesday, and getting to swimming lessons was a huge deal. Running around, everybody was missing a shoe or their swimming suit or something, and she would be frantic while we were getting ready. So my mom always had this process of becoming extremely frantic until the moment everything was ready. We'd all be perfect at that point. And then there would be this ramp down afterwards where everything kind of, all the energy let off. But this particular time, I don't know what was going on, but we were especially late for getting to the swimming pool, and so we were rushing around, and when my mom got really stressed out, she would become just go into road rage too, and be yelling at other drivers, and just her dad was a crazy driver, and she would take that on when she got really stressed out. And so she was, we were just cruising from one side of the town to the other to get to the swimming lesson on time. And we got there, and there was all these kids just standing in the lobby area when we got there. We said, what is going on? Because we're supposed to be running through skip the showers, get in the pool. And we got there, and everyone's standing outside. And they said, one of the kids pooped in the pool. There's a big old turd just sitting in the middle of the pool. And so
it's not a Baby Ruth
this time. No. And so everyone was just standing there. We couldn't even do the swimming lesson. So it was one of these times that stands out in my head of, where being all stressed out, it just didn't pay off. So I take the opposite approach, I think. I say, you know what? If we're running late, we're just not going to get there on time. Who knows if the pool's even going to be open?
Don't Don't sweat the small stuff.
I don't. I try not to.
Okay, so you take an opposite approach of what you saw.
I try to. I think internally, maybe I feel that way sometimes, but I think, you know what? I've got a big family too, and so I get a little extra time. I give it to myself, just saying, you know what? I get to show up to things late.
Everyone understands.
I'd say I'm Benedict.
Benedict.
Yeah. I'd say I have a sort of similar opposite approach as my parents, but it's not quite like that. I mean, I grew up, and my dad, I think, and this is still pretty true now, his response to stress is smoking a lot of cigarettes. And
I'll fix it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's his way to do it, and that's what he needs to do, I guess. But it always kind of grossed me out. It still does kind of gross me out. So I refuse to smoke a cigarette. I never have, and just say I never will. So
Does he have a favorite brand?
Camel Wides.
Camel Wides.
Smell
There you go. Yeah.
Just the worst smell in the world. It wafts into I live in my parents' basement, which is really cool, and the smell of them wafts into my basement from time to time when he's smoking in the garage, and it will wake me up in the middle of the night, and I get angry and irritated. So his response to stress is something that always bothered me. So I don't know. I don't have cigarettes to smoke, so I guess I just go to the gym instead. But that doesn't always happen, and sometimes I just brood with my stress. So I'm not sure which is worse, cigarettes my dad smokes or me just kind of penting up all this.
Just push it down.
Yeah.
Stuff that'll fix it.
Yeah. So I guess we both have our unhealthy responses to stress. I don't know.
I think it's hard to have a healthy response to stress. I really
It is.
do.
Yeah, it takes a long time. You got to be as old as Leonard to have a healthy response.
So what is yours, Leonard?
Okay, well,
Teach us your ways.
you know, I actually, my parents were kind of not stressful people. You know, they were from the World War II generation. My mom is still alive, although she's forgotten everything, but she's still a sweet lady, and she's still healthy at 92. And neither of my parents would freak out. They just wouldn't. They never did. And I think it was part of the World War II thing where, hey, we got to, you know, things aren't how we want them. That's tough. This is what we got. We got to deal with it. We got to make it work. And so that was their way of doing things. And I think their faith also helped keep them anchored a little bit. They were both very strong Christian people, and it helped them deal with stress. So we had plenty of it. We had plenty of opportunities. My mother worked nights as a labor and delivery nurse with my uncle, who was the head of the OB-GYN ward at the Elmhurst Hospital. And so she would get home about 7:30 in the morning and make us all breakfast. And then she would go to sleep for 3 or 4 hours. And she would pack our lunches, too. And then she would go to sleep for 3 or 4 hours, wake up, and start getting ready for us to come home and make messes in the early afternoon when we got out of school. And this would repeat every day. And then in the summer times, we had our, quote, garden. It was a truck farm where we raised sweet corn and so on. And when the harvest would...
What is a truck farm, Leonard?
Truck farm, maybe that's an old school word, but it's like you don't live on the farm. It's like small acreage, and you raise produce that you can sell. You put it in your truck and take it to the market.
You're not growing it in a truck.
Oh, I thought
No.
this was
Yeah.
some dirt. in a pickup truck.
That's what I thought. I was like, I see
like
the
an
back
old
of a pickup
abandoned
truck.
pickup truck
Right.
with sweet corn growing out of the bed. Okay,
That's
now
what I had
got you.
imagined.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's probably an old term. You have to forgive my old school and terminology. But anyway, so we had 2 acres to start with, and it grew to as much as 12 acres. And when the sweet corn harvest would come in, we had, like I said, 8 kids, and so we would, the stuff we couldn't sell, we would freeze it all. And my poor mother was in charge of freezing thousands of ears of sweet corn in addition to all this other stuff she had to do. And so she was always under the gun. And my father was not one to be of any domestic help at all, old school. And of course, he was working overtime, and when he came home, he had to fix the washing machine or the car or whatever anyway, so he couldn't. So we had plenty of opportunities to be stressed out, but they just never seemed to be. Never. I don't remember them getting wound up.
That's great. Yeah.
So that's kind of how I do it too. I'm kind of the opposite of you guys. I actually liked what I saw, and I kind of copied it.
Keep the
thing going. Yeah. And it drives my wife crazy because she was more their parents would stress out about anything and everything. And so she's like wanting to be there on time and keep the schedule, and I'm like, what schedule? So we've had to work with that.
You know, my husband has told me before, because I really don't get too worked up about things and pretty even keel, and he has told me before, which I really don't understand, but he said, if you would get more upset, I wouldn't have to be as upset.
That sounds very similar to my situation.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Crystal?
I mean, yeah, my, like I said, I have my biological mother who I'll probably talk about more. I mean, mine, it's a little darker, but she handled stress by smoking cigarettes, but also drinking. She drank a lot, and she was an alcoholic, and she went to rehab many times. She tried. I haven't seen her in several years now, but that was when I was small, and she would definitely drink. And I'm lucky with my father, who, you know, he drinks beer now and again, but he doesn't handle his stress by doing that. And I think because of what my mom did when I was younger, I like to handle stress. I mean, it's really hard when you're in college and you're trying to get through all these classes, organic chemistry. I've been trying just to forgive myself more, I guess. You know, take care of myself and, like, you know, go to the gym or give myself, you know, time to breathe and, like, not stress myself out with school, and just, if I don't get something done, not to beat myself up about it. And, you know,
That's healthy.
Yeah, trying to, you know, eat healthier and, like, just be healthier and drink water. I don't know. So that's kind of what I try to do. It's easier said than done.
Take care of yourself, because
Yeah.
you didn't see your mother taking care of herself.
Exactly.
I think that's a great phrase of, like, just kind of forgiving yourself, because I think a lot of times where the stress comes from is that you have this unrealistic expectation about what you're going to be able to do, kind of given everything else in your life. And when I said I get kind of a freebie for having a big family, you know, it's like, well, we do have a lot more on our plate, you know, so it is harder to get to things on time. It is harder to do certain things, and you make some decisions in life, and it takes away from others, and you kind of, if you're able to do that, and it's hard, right? I think that is useful practice, though.
I think my family, we went to a church that was kind of in a wealthy area in Elmhurst, lovely church, beautiful building, and so on and so forth. But we would drive up in our beat up old station wagon, and pop cans and caramel corn wrappers would fall out of the car as we pulled up. And my parents would pull right up to the front door with everybody walking in their mink coats. And here we are all scraggling out of this beat up old station wagon.
Got like peanut butter on your pants or something, yeah.
And we would always be late or just getting there when everybody else was, you know, and so I was always embarrassed, but in retrospect, I liked their, you know, hey, this is us. Here we are. Take it or leave it.
Your style.
Yeah. And I think I kind of, that got to me, through to me by osmosis later in life.
I like that.
Okay. So let's think about the next question that I would like to discuss. So my dad went into the bottom of this well looking for my mother's diamond, and he had really good intentions, but he got down there and he found himself in a mess. You know, he had to get out quickly. So that was something that he was really, you know, he wanted to do good, but he got in over his head. So I wanted to find out, you know, do you guys have stories like that from what your parents or maybe a sibling or even something that you've done that put you in a situation you weren't expecting? Len?
You're always, I've always got something to add, don't you? All right. Yeah,
Short, Len, we don't have the time for the entire history of times you've been in over your head.
Okay, I'll tell you one that my dad did. He bought when I was just a little shaver. We moved from Bloomington, Illinois, to west side of Chicago, and he bought a 3-flat. Now that again might be old terminology. Does everybody know what a 3-flat is?
No, we're tracking with you there.
Okay, all right. So
No.
it's a like very typical of Chicago. It's a tall, skinny building, and each floor is a separate apartment.
I just didn't
Okay.
know they were called.
Vertical. Okay.
Yeah, vertical type of
brownstones.
brownstones.
3 flats.
Yeah, but this was a cheap version of a brownstone that was just framed with some kind of ugly siding in it.
Okay.
And it was dilapidated when we moved in there, and my father was one of these kind of guys that could fix anything. So he was digging out a basement. Whoever digs out a basement of an existing building, but that's what he was doing. And he was doing it with a shovel, not a caterpillar or machinery, with a shovel. So he was getting tired of lifting these buckets of dirt out of this basement, so he dug himself a ramp to go down in the basement, and he hooked up an electric motor that he had salvaged from something and made a big long belt out of rope and a drum. And when he would plug the motor in, it was hooked up to this wheelbarrow that he would fill up with dirt, and it would just zzz right up the ramp. I don't know how he got it to stop in time, but somehow he got it to stop also. Well, something went wrong with the motor, and he was down in this basement, and there was groundwater, so he was standing in water, and he thought he had turned off the power to the electric motor, and he hadn't.
Uh-oh.
And and the power was up in the ceiling, and he somehow got a hold of the hot wire, and his feet, of course, were in the water, and so he was getting a total shock, and he could. And when that happens, your muscles convulse, and he grabbed onto the wires even harder, and he couldn't let go of them. And he said the only thing that saved him was his muscles continued to convulse, and he was starting to jump up and down. And one time he was in such a little ball that his weight pulled his hands off of the wires, and that's the only thing that saved him.
Wow.
So that's
Definitely fits
You're
in
in
that
over your
category.
head.
Yeah.
And he's had some more stories, but I'll defer to you guys.
Wow.
So
That's pretty good, though.
yeah.
Well, mine is about my dad, too. And my dad is totally worthless when it comes to fixing things. But early on, he was still trying to fix things, so work on the car or work on the house. And eventually, he gave it up altogether, which is the best.
Sometimes wisdom is the better part.
It is. But when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, he had decided the radiator on his Ford Taurus had gone. And he thought, well, this can't be too hard to do. I'm going to figure out what's going on with this radiator. And I think he needed to flush it because he had gone in there and gotten, he was working on the radiator, but having no experience with cars, didn't know you have to let the car cool down before opening the radiator. And opened it up and got sprayed scalded all over. And came into the house, screaming and shouting, and jumped in the shower in cold water. And I remember being a little guy and just standing there. You remember those old? They still got them. The animal crackers that come like in the red box. It looks like it's from a circus or whatever.
On there.
I just remember holding that and kind of being like, "What is going on here?" And that's probably the last time he ever tried fixing a car. But we still bring that up to him when he's going to get in over his head. Be like, "Dad, remember the radiator?" That's just shorthand for you're getting in over your head again.
Oh my, that's funny.
Yeah. So did he have blisters, or wasn't that bad?
He must have gotten. He really doesn't seem to have kind of residual scarring from that. But I'd have to ask him about that. Maybe it's on his back or his chest, or I haven't seen it somewhere. But his face was survived.
Yeah. So anyone else?
I don't, excuse me, I don't think I really have a comparable story on that front.
I was like, wow, man, that's intense.
I had another one.
Okay. Go ahead.
So this
I
one
like
is,
hearing stories about your dad.
well, this one's. I'm going to point the
For the
camera at
listeners,
me.
he's the pastor of Lane and Sarah in my church.
Yeah.
And nobody would ever think of him as being out of control. I mean, he's just
No.
such a great pastor.
But this one is about me. So when my wife and I got married young. So I was 21, she was 23, and immediately got pregnant, and then decided.
Laura got pregnant.
Laura got pregnant, not me, fortunately. And then decided that it'd be a good idea while I was working full time to also get my master's degree. And when we were researching it, the program I signed up for was a nights only program. It was a distance learning thing. And so you could do part of the classes online. You had to go in every once in a while and do a night class. You could do summer studies, but you didn't have to be there. So I got accepted to this program. And I'm working full time at the time in Chicago. And we're about to have Annabelle, our oldest. And I show up for orientation. They've got rooms for each one of the programs, so historical theology, general theology, systematics, and exegesis are the programs. And I'm looking around, and I don't see one for the distance program. And I go and find the dean and ask him, hey, where's my group at? He goes, oh, we canceled that program. It doesn't exist anymore. But don't worry. You can take your admittance into that program and go join any of the others that you want to. I said, well, aren't they full-time programs? And he goes, well, yeah. And I thought, well, okay, this has never stopped me in the past from getting something done. So I walked over and went into the general theology program and met with them, and they said, what's your situation? And I explained it. They said, there's no way that you can get this done working full-time. You have to be here during the day. And I took that as a challenge to say, well, yes, I can. And so it took me 3.5, almost 4 years, but I did it. And it was one of these insane things where you've got a kid, so you're up all night, and we had successively had more kids throughout the period. You're up all night. Then I would work, I would commute into Chicago, an hour in, I would work a full day, I'd commute out, I would eat dinner at the school, do classes from 6 until 10, come home and do my homework until midnight or something, and then wake up the next day at 5 and do it again. And we got through it, but I think we probably have scars from that. It was, I was in over my head. I should have pulled the ripcord a long time ago, but that was pretty terrifying.
Well, you got the degree, though.
I had the degree,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Earned with blood, sweat, and tears.
Now, I have one more if we have time.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. This is my dad again, and we used to go camping up in on the Michigan coast of Lake Michigan, and one day it was great for us because it was a stormy day, and Lake Michigan had big waves. It occasionally happens, and so we had all these inner tubes that we got from the gas station and patched them all up. And we were floating around in the inner tubes. And my dad got in one of these currents that takes you out. It's like all the waves come in, but then there's a spot where they converge and come back out to sea or out to lake, whatever the case may be. And he got stuck in one of these, and he got way the heck out there. And we see him, and he's calling for help, going like waving his arms up in the air, calling for help. He doesn't know what to do because he's way the heck out there. And all of us are seeing him out there, and we're waving back. Hi, Dad. and so he finally said, well, this inner tube is slowing me down because the current is just pushing the inner tube, and I can't swim with the inner tube. So he let go of the inner tube, which was a huge mistake. So now, with every wave, he gets to the point where he's going under. And he said the final straw was he went down and he thought, this is it. I'm going to die. I can't make it. I'm exhausted, and these waves are too big, and my lungs are full of water now, and I'm gone. And just at that moment, he said he thought about his family and what would they do without him. And he said that gave him one final surge of energy, and he finally got a breath, and finally one of us, and then he started praying. And one of us finally realized, hey, wait a minute, Dad doesn't look good.
He's not actually having fun out there.
No, so one of us got in an inner tube and went out and got him on the inner tube, and then we found a place where the water was coming in instead of going out, and that's the only thing that saved his life.
Holy cow!
Your dad's like a cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Many lives, my goodness.
He was never afraid to try anything. He had, as far as I know, he didn't have fear of anything.
Sometimes you need fear.
It can be healthy. Can be healthy. He would just do anything.
All right. So the last question that I'm looking forward to hearing your answers on is, so I kind of made a lighthearted attempt at starting a legend by saying that, challenging to treasure seekers, that my mom's diamond is still at the bottom of this wishing well. And so then my question for the panel is there something legendary that you remember from your family, or is there a fake legend you would start, like, mine's not really fake, I mean, it's really there, but, something like that you can think of. You have one, Crystal?
Yes, I do. So I think this falls in this category. So my mother's grandma, I called her Granny. I think that's what you...
Granny.
And she was really awesome. She was this Polish, super Polish, accent. And she would go around, she wore a wig, too. She didn't have hair. She wore a big wig. And she'd be like, don't take pictures of me without my wig. And she lived to be, in her late 80s. And she'd always run around calling me and my older sister... Świnia, which is pig.
Yeah, it's piggy. And
she'd also call us other Polish names that we could not say the English version of. And we were like, oh, that's fun. We should tell the people at school that. I'm like, oh, we should. And she told us, because I don't remember what generation came from Poland or wherever, she told us that, our great, maybe another, I don't know, grandpa is the king of a country somewhere. And I'm not, there was this paper on it, and she was like, oh, he was the king of da-da-da, and I'm like, okay, well, why are we poor? I'm a princess? So I always, I don't know if this is true, because I'm I don't even know, when I was younger, she told the name, and she had this house in Bensonville. I think the house is still there, but, they sold all of her stuff, and she had this thing, and I always used to try and find it in her house, and it had a picture of him and proof, I guess, I don't know, but so I could be a princess without. So
I think there's a great
if
possibility.
Anybody who's listening knows a country somewhere that's looking for their the heir to their throne. Yeah. My name is Crystal Nordan. I live in Illinois. Hook me up, because I could be really important somewhere.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
How cool is that?
I like that.
Great. Benedict?
Mine is totally fake. No chance of this being true. But when I moved to the house we live in now, the family across the street had a boy named Paul, and we became friends. Now he's we're still friends. He's older now.
This is true, or this is fake?
This is a true statement about Paul existing,
okay.
But
it's getting hard to sort out already.
The legend that we came up with is totally fake. So he has two older siblings, but they're way older. So he kind of grew up as an only child, and then we moved in. I think at the time we had 5 or 6 already. I think number 6 was born right after we moved. So it was all these kids over there, and he was like, what the heck is up with these people with all these kids? So as the years progressed, we started joking around about it a little more, and also my mom started having more kids. We came up to 7 kids. And so he came up with this joke, or we did together, that there was this lost Wiesner, this extra. We have so many Wiesners that there was this one that we literally just forgot about and left in the woods. And I think we came up with a name for her, but I don't remember what it was. It wasn't a name that any of our kids would actually have. And so where we live is surrounded by forest preserves, so it's a heavily wooded area, kind of like creepy, potentially creepy at night. So, when we're having a bonfire or we're out at night, we'll be like, oh, the lost Wiesner is in the woods watching us.
Oh, that's cool.
Plotting her revenge for being abandoned.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Another legend we came up with, or a joke that we came up with on the same lines, was that because we have so many kids and can't even keep track of them, my parents started having kids and naming them like they named stars. So like just a big series of numbers, X00127. So we would have this joke of like my mom being, overwhelmed by all the mess, and she wants some kid to come clean it. So she starts saying, hey, X77105, come clean up your mess. So there was the fake lost Wiesner, and then there was all these extra fake Wiesners that all had names that were just serial numbers.
As though 9 of you wasn't enough, huh?
Right. It looks like there are 9 of us, but really there are just so many that at any one point you see 9, but there's a bunch of missing ones, and you don't know their names. They're named after numbers, and some of them are lost in the woods.
Yeah, I like it. How about Lane? Got any?
I don't have anything. I'm batting 0, I think, on legends here.
No legends?
I'm a legend in my own mind.
You are.
We all know that, Lane.
I kind of have, my father, for a long time, made me believe that it was like a couple summers ago when we were in my parents' yard, and he had been drinking a little bit, and he decided, I was like doing cartwheels or something I used to do, and he was like, oh, I can do one of those, and he did a cartwheel, and then he did like a front, like something, I don't know what he did. I was like, wow, that's awesome, how did you learn how to do that? He's like, oh, I used to be a gymnast, and I did all this stuff, and I was close to being really good, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. Look at my dad, And I told my stepmom one day, and I was like, yeah, Dad used to be a gymnast, and she's like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, Dad used to be a gymnast, he was really good. And she's like, your dad was never a gymnast? He was just drunk doing a cartwheel in the yard. And I was like, oh, and I was really disappointed because I thought my dad was like some awesome
Secret way.
Yeah. Or like now, what he does for a living now, he's a PI, so he...
Private investigator.
He is. It sounds way cooler than it is, actually. I'm always like, yeah, going out to spy on people, Dad, and he's always like, don't say it like that. The government's gonna come after us. He's like, I sit in a van and I record people with insurance fraud. But I'm like, oh, it sounds cool. My dad's the spy and the gymnast.
A world-class gymnast.
Yeah.
Now there's a legend in his own mind.
Yeah.
Right there.
I like that.
Yeah, he'd be really embarrassed right now, probably.
Lane, I bet you could do drunk cartwheels.
I think okay, so on that note, that is funny. So one of my goals for this year, though, is to learn how to walk on my hands. So I'm doing lots of handstands right now, because that's what you do first. And I've worked my way up. I've gotten from doing handstands on the wall. I can do that for 5 minutes now, which is really hard. And I can do handstands, and my sister was teaching me how to do them. Sarah, my sister Sarah, who actually is a gymnast. And so I was outside a couple weekends ago, and it was really nice, barbecuing, having a couple beers while I was out there, and the kids were all doing cartwheels and handstands in the yard, and I was like, I can do that. Tried to do a handstand and just fell right on my head and fell over, and all the kids were laughing at me. So,
well, at least you're providing good entertainment, Lane.
Not so much a legend, more of a circus act over there.
Well, I have a kind of a legend from my family. My wife grew up next to the Harndens, and they were an unusual family. But when the lady sold her home and moved out, she gave some stuff to Claudia, because Claudia kind of had, that's my wife, had adopted her because she was kind of alone. She had, and she gave us an old trunk, very simple wooden box with a lid that opened up, kind of almost like a very simple cedar chest looking thing. And it did look old. And in the bottom of it was a piece of paper taped to the bottom
This is cool already.
What's that?
This is cool already.
That said that it was brought over to the United States on the Mayflower by such and such a person. It was signed by some antique dealer guy or whatever.
Wow.
And so it was a verified thing. Well, she gave that box to me, and at that time, I didn't give a lick about antiques or anything, so we had it in the basement, and it kind of got wet, you know, the floor.
Oh, no.
The floor got a little damp. It was one of those kind of old school, it was an old 1800s house, and the basements are always damp. They didn't have waterproofing in those days, I guess. Anyway, so that piece of paper turned almost black with mold, and so I just ripped it out and threw it out. So now we have this trunk and the lady has passed away, the husband has passed away, and we have this old trunk, and I have no way of knowing how to verify that this actually ever happened.
I suggest Pawn Stars.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So anyway, my wife calls this thing the Mayflower, and she scoffs. She says, "That did not come over on the Mayflower," and I'm saying it did. So there's our legend.
I like it.
Cool.
So I don't know what we'll ever do with it. Maybe it's worth $1 million. Who knows? But we'll never know, probably.
I guess it was worth $1 million until that piece of paper molded.
Until I threw the piece of paper away.
Yeah.
Good job, Leonard.
Yeah,
Just
that's
set $1
me.
million on fire or molded it up.
I light my cigars with $1 million bills.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, well, I think that wraps it up for the panel discussion. That was great. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for listening to the Hillbilly Justice on the School Bus podcast. Tune in next time to hear about the burning beetle. Until then, dream big and have fun.